Okay, guys, today is lesson 7 for 9-8 and 9-9. And so, for those of you who are virtual, I wanted you to log on to the Zoom for today. And so, if you did that, you don't need to watch this video. This is going to be just a really brief synopsis of what we did during the Zoom for those of you who were not able to make it. So, I would really like for you to make every effort to make it during those Zoom times. And so, if you're unable to do the Zoom, I'd really like you to check in with me and let me know what extenuating circumstance you had for not being able to be on it. But I'll just kind of briefly go over what we did today. So at the beginning of class, the Google question, it's asking you a question about the chapter 1, and asking you to apply some of the information there. So answer that. And then we took our quiz. If you are a virtual student, you're going to have to be logged on with me on Zoom to take your quiz. And so that's why I asked you to be on the Zoom today. So you need to make arrangements for me if you weren't able to do that. So I thought we would start by reviewing the JFK prompt. And so the class did this today through kind of informal discussion with each other. I'll just walk you through this kind of partially looking at the Zoom. Looking at the prompt. So this is the prompt that you did sorry, I thought I had it pulled up. This is the prompt that you did the CAMI annotations for. So we have already annotated this for both Soapstone and for the 3 appeals. And so just remembering that for the 3 appeals, we want to be as specific as we can. And we want to try not to say things like JFK uses ethos and logos to achieve his purpose. We want to be really specific about what he's doing. So think about the many, many ways that somebody can build their credibility. Think about the many, many ways that they can build emotion in the audience. Think about specific emotions. So for instance, in this piece, I think we would say that JFK is definitely trying to build anger in the audience. And by doing that, he is trying to take the blame off himself, place it onto the steel companies, and also to increase pressure on the steel companies to change this price hike. So I think those are all important things that he's doing. And so just want to be specific as you can be. The next activity that we did in class today with this prompt is looking at the passage structurally. So thinking about the passage and thinking about where is he making shifts, and then what are those shifts trying to do. So I'll kind of model that for the first couple of paragraphs and explain it to you. And then I'd like for you just on your own to think through that for the rest of the passage. So whenever you start actually writing rhetorical analysis essays, you'll see that you're going to have kind of 2 options to structuring them. One of those options would be just to be really specific about a specific choice that's being made. And then another option would be to just kind of work your way chronologically throughout the piece. So these first 2 paragraphs of JFK's, I'll give you a second just to kind of reread those. So in those 2 paragraphs, I would say that he's introducing the topic. I would say that he is also indicating how important and widespread the topic is, how bad it is by comparing it to all of the sacrificial things everybody in the country is doing up against what these steel executives are doing. So I think his goal is to identify a villain, right? And to identify really the topic and what he's going to be talking about throughout the piece. So you would do the same thing, reading through it and saying to yourself, okay, well, where do I think the next section is, or where is the next break? And what is he trying to accomplish within those paragraphs? There are some really kind of typical ways that people start and end pieces. So if you think about, the introduction and the conclusion. So a lot of times in a conclusion for an argument, you might provide a call to action. You might indicate next steps. You might predict consequences. Those are all things that people do in conclusions. So you could be looking for those things within a piece as well to think about, okay, where is the writer starting to do that? And to what purpose are they doing that? So we did that. And then we moved on and we looked at some sample essays. So these sample essays, these are all under lesson 7 where it says JFK prompt. The prompt is there, the sample essays, as well as the scoring guide, the scoring rubrics for this question. So this is the scoring guide that you're seeing on your screen now. And so we just basically went to page 5 and we walked through the 3 rows that make up the scoring rubric for the rhetorical analysis essay. And these 3 rows are going to be the same for all 3 of the essays that are on your exam. Row A is the thesis point. The thesis point, you basically get it or you do not. Do you have a thesis that responds to the prompt, that makes a claim? You could have a weak thesis and still get the point here. What would not get the point would be if you just restated the prompt, or if you summarized the passage, or if you just didn't have a thesis at all. So most students are probably going to get the thesis point because it's not giving you a point for how good your thesis is. It's just giving you a point for having one. Now, you want your thesis to be as good as possible because that's going to help you, I think, on your total score. So on row B, this is the evidence commentary row, and this row is important because it's the majority of the points. It's where you're really, are proving your thesis. And I would say if we were to write an essay tomorrow, we would probably see a lot of students would be in this 2-3 range here in the middle. And we want to get to the 3-4. So this is where we want to be hanging out, and we're probably going to have a lot of experience here at the beginning of the year. So where it says 2, it says evidence provides some specific relevant evidence, and commentary explains how some of the evidence relates to the student's argument, but no line of reasoning is established or the line of reasoning is faulty. So if you watched my video on Friday, you'll remember how I was talking about having a thesis, having topic sentences, having commentary that all connected to each other, and that there should be a connection between all of those things. That's what we talk about when we talk about the line of reasoning. Also, the idea that your argument should build on itself, and so you shouldn't be able to just rearrange paragraphs and have the essay feel exactly the same. There should be some progression in the things that you're arguing. On the 3, you see that it provides specific evidence. Commentary explains how some of the evidence supports a line of reasoning, and it adds one layer, explains how at least one rhetorical choice in the passage contributes to the writer's argument, purpose, or message. If you look over at the 4, really the only difference are that this under commentary it says consistently explains, and under the last one it says explains how multiple rhetorical choices contribute to the writer's argument, purpose, or message. The last point is the sophistication point, and on the sophistication point, really you can read through this for yourself. It's like thesis that you could either get it or not get it. But the difference is that this is going to be fewer students are going to get this. Most students will get the thesis point. Fewer students are going to get the sophistication point. So really, I think you can break this down into 2 areas. You can break it down into the student is going to have excellent critical thinking or really excellent prose style here. And that's usually what's going to get a student the sophistication point. So having looked at that, the last thing that I want you to do is to go to the sample essays that I have linked on Google Classroom, read those 3 essays, think about what you think is a strength and a weakness for each one. So there is one high scorer, one mid scorer, and one low scorer. And so you should be able to read those and kind of figure out where you think those fall. What do you think is strong about each sample? What is weak? And how would you improve each? And that is kind of the end of the lesson for today. So let me know if you have any questions. Our homework assignment is to read chapter 2 for next Monday, Tuesday. Same thing will go. You'll need to be in a Zoom to take the quiz next week with your camera on. So do that reading, take notes over that reading, and be prepared for that quiz on Monday or Tuesday, depending on when your class period is. Thanks.